You've messed up. Somehow, against all odds, you tripped over history itself and landed in the ancient world. No Wi-Fi, no electricity, no fast food, just dust, stone, and people who look like they haven't discovered deodorant yet and are very confident about it. At first glance, this feels like a downgrade. You're surrounded by sandals, mud bricks, and the general vibe of a civilization that hasn't figured out what a weekend is. Everyone looks busy, no one looks happy. Someone's definitely judging you for not knowing how to tie a toga. But here's the problem. You were expecting stupid people with rocks. Instead, you're about to realize that ancient humans were way smarter than we give them credit for. Not surprisingly clever for their time smart, I mean uncomfortably smart. The kind of smart that makes you slowly put your phone back in your pocket and stop feeling superior. Because the more you look around, the more you realize that ancient technology wasn't primitive, it was advanced, intentional, and in some cases, flat out better than what we use today. And somehow, we forgot how to do most of it, which is impressive considering we still remember how to argue online. Let's start with something that really shouldn't exist. In the early 1900s, a group of divers were poking around a shipwreck off the coast of Greece. Nothing unusual there, old ships sink all the time. Usually you find pottery, statues, maybe some coins, cool museum stuff. Something a tour guide will call priceless while you nod politely. But this wreck had something else. Inside was a corroded lump of metal and gears that looked like someone dropped a clock into the ocean and let it marinate for 2,000 years. At first, people thought it was junk, just another broken artifact. Probably ancient trash, history's version of a drawer full of tangled cables. Then someone cleaned it, and suddenly everyone went quiet, because what they found was a device built around 100 years before Christ that could predict eclipses, track the movement of planets, calculate lunar cycles, and model astronomical events years into the future. This thing wasn't art, it wasn't decoration, it wasn't a fancy paperweight, it was a machine that calculated the universe. Today, we call it the Antikythera Mechanism, but back then it was just another tool built by people who clearly understood math, mechanics, and astronomy far better than we assumed, without Google, calculators, or rage quitting halfway through a tutorial. To put this into perspective, this device is basically an analog computer. Not digital, not electric, pure gears and logic. The kind of thing we weren't supposed to invent until the modern age. And yet there it was, built by hand with precision for a purpose. Then the knowledge disappeared. For over 1,000 years, humanity forgot how to make anything like it. Entire civilizations rose and fell without recreating something that already existed. That's not progress. That's forgetting. That's like inventing a microwave and then spending the next millennium convinced fire is the peak of human innovation. Now, let's talk about buildings. Specifically, why ancient Roman structures are still standing while modern buildings crumble after a few decades and one strong sneeze. If you've ever seen Roman ruins in person, you'll notice something strange. They're not ruins in the sense that they're barely holding together. Many of them are solid, strong, stable. Some are still in use today, which is awkward considering how many modern buildings can't survive a minor earthquake or a parking garage inspection. That's because Roman concrete is different. Modern concrete cracks, it weakens, water gets in, things fall apart, and eventually someone slaps a temporary close sign on it that stays there longer than the Roman Empire lasted. Roman concrete does the opposite. When exposed to water, especially seawater, it actually gets stronger. Tiny crystals form inside the material over time, filling cracks before they can spread. The building heals itself. Self-healing concrete 2,000 years ago. Meanwhile, we can't even keep potholes filled for more than a week. Modern engineers didn't even understand how the Romans did this until recently, and once they figured it out, the next question was obvious. Why did we ever stop doing this? The answer is complicated, but it mostly boils down to speed and profit. Modern concrete is cheap and fast. Roman concrete took time, care, and very specific materials. Ancient builders optimized for permanence. We optimize for good enough until the warranty expires. Now, let's say you've survived long enough in the ancient world to get injured. Maybe you fell off a wall. Maybe a chariot got a little too ambitious. Maybe you trusted a guy named Brutus for some reason. Either way, you need medical help. This is where you expect ancient technology to completely fall apart, except it doesn't. Ancient doctors understood the human body better than you'd expect. In ancient India, surgeons were performing reconstructive surgery, including nose repairs using skin grafts. Yes, nose jobs. in ancient times, because even back then, people were unhappy with their profile. These techniques wouldn't show up in European medicine again until centuries later. Ancient Egyptians performed surgery. They cleaned wounds. They stitched people up. They treated fractures. They even attempted brain procedures. Was it comfortable? Absolutely not. Pain relief was basically like, bite this stick and think happy thoughts. But the knowledge was there. The skill was there. They weren't guessing. They were observing, recording, and improving without medical school debt, which honestly feels like a missed opportunity for us. Medicine didn't appear in modern times. It evolved, stalled, and evolved again, sometimes losing entire chapters along the way. Now let's talk about something more explosive: Greek fire. This was a weapon used by the Byzantine Empire that could burn on water, stick to surfaces, and refuse to go out no matter what you threw at it. Enemy ships would be set ablaze in the middle of the sea. Water didn't help. Panic did the rest. Imagine watching the ocean itself catch fire and realizing your life choices have led you here. The exact formula was a closely guarded secret. Only a handful of people knew how to make it, and when the empire declined, the knowledge disappeared with them. To this day, we don't know exactly how Greek fire worked. Think about that. Humanity invented a terrifying, game-breaking weapon and then misplaced the instructions like a takeout menu. That's like inventing flight, using it for a while, and then collectively deciding airplanes were a phase. Which brings us to sanitation. Ancient civilizations had plumbing, real plumbing, sewage systems, public toilets, flowing water. The Romans built massive underground sewer networks. Waste was carried away instead of dumped in the street. Public baths existed. Clean water flowed into cities. All very impressive, but before you get too impressed, there was a catch. Toilet paper didn't exist. Instead, people used a shared sponge on a stick. Yes, shared. So, congratulations, ancient Rome had advanced sanitation and absolutely no concept of personal boundaries. Progress, apparently, is never allowed to be perfect. Now, look up. Ancient people were obsessed with the sky, without telescopes, without satellites, without apps reminding them what Mercury's doing this week. And yet they tracked stars, planets, solstices, and seasons with shocking accuracy. The Maya built calendars more precise than those used in Europe at the time. Stonehenge aligns perfectly with solar events. The pyramids of Egypt are aligned to true north with accuracy that still confuses engineers today, engineers who do have calculators. These weren't accidents. They were lucky guesses. They were the result of careful observation over centuries. Ancient people watched the sky the way we watch screens, constantly, obsessively, with purpose. No doom scrolling, just doom predicting eclipses. And then there's electricity. Yes, electricity. In the Middle East, archaeologists found clay jars containing copper and iron pieces. When filled with acidic liquid, they produce a small electric charge. They're called the Baghdad batteries. We don't know exactly what they were used for. Some theories suggest metal plating, others suggest ritual use. Some think they were just experiments. But here's the thing, they work. Which means ancient people were at least aware of electrical effects, even if they didn't immediately invent smartphones or argue about charger types. Electricity wasn't discovered in modern times. It was noticed, explored, and then ignored. Just another thing we forgot. Like how to be normal in public. So what does all this mean? It means ancient people weren't stupid, they weren't clueless, they weren't dragging civilization forward by accident. They were intelligent, creative, and deeply curious. The difference between then and now isn't intelligence, it's continuity. Ancient knowledge was fragile. Wars, disasters, fires, and politics wiped out libraries and teachers. When knowledge wasn't passed down, it vanished. We didn't build on the past, we restarted from scratch, over and over again. Like humanity keeps hitting new game without saving. So when you look at ancient technology, you're not seeing the beginning of human intelligence. You're seeing the remains of something we once understood and then forgot. Which is honestly more unsettling than the idea that we were ever dumb to begin with. You didn't fall into a primitive world. You fell into a world that knew things and lost them. And if that doesn't make you uncomfortable, it probably should. Now, let's get out of here before someone figures out how to rebuild the universe with gears again. Because frankly, we're not emotionally ready for that.